Sitting in jail gives you a lot of time to think about your mistakes. But I wasn't thinking about anything except anger. I was angry at my boss, at my soon-to-be ex-wife Carol, and at myself for being so foolish. My name is Michael Arnold. When I say I was foolish, I mean really foolish. I was the clueless husband who didn't know that his wife was unfaithful. And she was unfaithful with the man I disliked most in the world, my boss, Jacob Sanders. I was also foolish because I didn't know that my wife was expecting a child, and I thought the baby was mine. I guess her pregnancy led to the "we need to talk" moment. Let me explain a bit. My problems actually began in first grade. I first met and eventually grew to dislike Jacob Sanders when we both started school. We have been at odds ever since he teased me about my freckles. That was the start of many fights between us. That first fight ended in a draw, with a teacher pulling us apart. I had a bloody nose and he had a black eye. Over the first 8 years of school, we averaged about 3 fights a year, with third grade being the worst. We had 7 fights. However, in 8th grade, we only had 1, and I won that one. I didn't want anything to do with Jacob, but he wouldn't leave me alone. For some reason, he was always trying to compete with me. He aimed to get better grades than I did in our classes. He was stronger in science and reading, while I was better in math and history. In sports, we were pretty equal, but Jacob was a good athlete and always tried to outshine me. The fighting stopped in 8th grade when Jacob realized he couldn't win anymore. Instead, he started trying to embarrass me and get me into trouble. In high school, he almost got me expelled when someone broke into the school and made a mess in the hallways. My student ID was found next to an empty spray can in the trash. Luckily, I had noticed my ID was missing and had reported it the day before. I knew it must have been Jacob because I had seen him near my locker after practice one day when I came out of the shower. I guessed he was up to no good, so I checked everything in my locker. I looked for my cash first, and then I went through the rest of my things. One day, I realized my ID was missing, so I quickly went to the office to report it. There was a funny moment in class when Jacob played a prank. He put a fart noisemaker in my desk and set it off. The loud noise surprised everyone, and Jacob pretended to hold his nose, laughing and asking, "Mike, what did you have for lunch?" The class erupted in laughter, and I responded with, "He who smelt it dealt it." This caused even more laughter, which led to Miss Wormwood warning us that if we kept making noise, we would get detention. Jacob was furious about being laughed at and told off by the teacher, but he just went quiet, his face turning bright red. Jacob was always trying to one-up me and make my life difficult. Yet most of the time, it didn't bother me. I was pretty comfortable with who I was, aside from the usual teenage worries. But there was one thing that did bother me, and that was girls. Both Jacob and I were decent-looking, but Jacob had a wealthy family, which made him more appealing to the girls at school. He even had a nice car. His parents bought him a BMW Z4. I couldn't compete with that. Still, I managed to go on a good number of dates myself. However, Jacob was dating the cheerleaders and the popular girls. I figured they were out of my reach anyway, so I didn't let it bother me too much. But Jacob didn't stop trying to show off. If I started dating a girl more than once, he would swoop in and start dating her too, and it didn't take long for her to lose interest in me. For the most part, I was okay with that because I wasn't serious with any of the girls. But there was one girl I really liked. Her name was Sandy Springer. She was smart, funny, and pretty. When I started dating Sandy, I tried to keep it low-key, taking her to less popular places so Jacob wouldn't find out about my feelings. After a couple of months, we decided to be exclusive. I thought giving her my class ring meant she was mine, but with prom coming up, I assumed she and I would go together. I should have asked her earlier, but I didn't know how that would go. When I finally brought it up to Sandy at lunch after getting the tickets, she turned red and told me she had already accepted an invitation to go with Jacob. I was upset and asked for my ring back. Then I left Sandy crying in the cafeteria. I never spoke to her again. I was really angry at her and wanted to take it out on someone. Instead, I saw Pam Taylor, the leader of the cheerleading team and Jacob's girlfriend. Normally, I would never have approached her, but I decided to try. "Hey, Pam," I said cheerfully. "How are you?" "I'm good. How about you, Michael?" she replied. Pam was beautiful, but she was friendly too. "I'm doing okay," I said, feeling that I had nothing to lose. "Would you like to go to the prom with me?" "That's sweet of you to ask," she said kindly, But I'm going with Jacob. Oh, I pretended to be surprised. I must have misunderstood. I thought Jacob was going with Sandy. I guess I got it wrong. Forget I said anything. I left Pam looking confused and talking to herself. Later, I heard that she and Jacob had a big argument. Maybe he took Sandy from me, but I had messed up his plans with Pam. It wasn't completely satisfying, but it was better than nothing. When I left school that afternoon, things got even better. "Michael," Pam called to me. "Hey, Pam," I said, still acting innocent. "I'm sorry if I upset you earlier." "Cut it out, Michael," she said, narrowing her eyes. "I found out you were dating Sandy, and Jacob took her from you." I felt my face heat up. I had been caught. "Yeah, I'm sorry. I was just trying to get back at Jacob. I'm sorry you got involved." "Were you serious about taking me to the prom?" "Do bears," I started to say, then stopped. "Yes, I would be excited to take you to the prom." "Good, because I want revenge," Pam said. "And if you play your cards right, it could be a night to remember." The prom turned out to be the best night ever for me. Not only did I get to go with the prettiest girl at school, but she made me feel special. Pam was all over me, and I loved seeing the looks on the other guys' faces. They couldn't believe she was with me. Jacob must have thought Pam would go with one of the football players, not me. His eyes almost popped out when he saw us enter the gym. Throughout the night, he tried to push himself between Pam and me. He wanted her to leave me and sit at his table. Pam refused him. He asked her to dance many times, but she completely ignored him. I felt a bit sorry for Sandy because she realized that Jacob had used her. Sandy finally broke down and cried, so she asked her parents to come pick her up. I still feel a bit guilty about it, but she made her own choices and had to deal with them. After the prom, Jacob continued trying to win Pam back. I knew that I was just living a fairy tale moment, and by tomorrow, Pam would likely be back with Jacob. But for that night, I wanted to enjoy the moment as much as I could. This led us to a local motel where I ended up spending time with the most attractive girl in school. After I dropped Pam off, she kissed me deeply and said I was a great guy. I went home feeling really happy, but just as I thought, by Monday, Pam and Jacob were a couple again. Still, I couldn't help but smile at Jacob whenever we passed in the hall. When graduation came, most of us went off to our chosen colleges. I was sad to be leaving my hometown and nervous about what lay ahead, but I was glad to be saying goodbye to Jacob for good, or so I thought. I was accepted at Georgia Tech while Jacob was going to Harvard, like we all expected. His grandfather's name was on a building there. I did well at Georgia Tech, studying software design. During my junior year, I met Carol at a school mixer. I won't bore you with the details of how we started dating, fell in love, and got married. In the beginning, we were more like good friends than in love. Our story isn't very exciting, but that doesn't matter now. What I can say about Carol is that she was smart. She was a business major at the University of Georgia, and I liked her not just because she was smart, but also because she was funny and friendly. While Carol wasn't the most glamorous person, she was pretty in a down-to-earth way. Honestly, she didn't compare to Pam, but she was as pretty as Sandy. For some reason, we just clicked. We got married 3 months after graduation, and for the 5 years we were married, I thought we were happy. Though we started as friends, by our 3rd year together, I was really in love with Carol, and I believe she felt the same. We even began talking about starting a family. Little did I know Carol had already taken steps to begin that journey without me. Right after school, I got a job with Zaba Security Software, a small startup. I graduated at the top of my class, so I had many job options. The 2 brothers running Zaba sold me on the idea of being part of something big and making a lot of money. The company did succeed, and we produced valuable work for some very large clients. I was making a good salary, Our job was to find weak spots in the company's software security and fix them. Our reputation was growing, but then the owners decided to sell the company. To my surprise, we were bought by a firm similar in size to ours, and that's when my troubles began. About 3 years after I joined the company, Carol wanted a new job. Luckily, my company was looking for an office manager, so Carol applied and got the position. I felt a bit worried about us both working in the same place, but it turned out fine at first. We carpooled and had lunch together. We worked in different departments and rarely saw each other during the day. We would drive to work together, share a quick goodbye, and head to our separate areas. If we were both free, which happened most days, we had lunch together and then carpooled home. This arrangement worked well until everything changed. Before I get into the acquisition details, let me explain my department. I was the lead programmer, which meant I worked on projects myself and also managed the schedule for the 8 other programmers under me. My main job was to fix any issues that my team couldn't solve on their own. Luckily, these problems were rare, and our customers were very happy. Our workspace was large, about the size of half a basketball court. We called it the bullpen, and we worked mostly at standing desks. The room was filled with various computers, servers, and printers. We had almost all the tech equipment we could need and took pride in keeping our customers' systems safe. In my 5 years at the company, we only received one complaint about a customer's system being hacked. We discovered that it was caused by one of our own employees who had turned off much of the security software we had set up. He was not very wise, but he did keep us up at night. Besides the 9 of us programmers, we had an administrative assistant named Kimberly. She was like our go-to person. She prepared any letters or notes we needed and kept track of our supplies to ensure we never ran out. Kimberly also took care of our monthly reports and recorded our billing hours. Oddly enough, a lot of our early work was done with pencil and paper. This helped the programmers get a clear idea before putting anything into the computer. Somehow, Kimberly could read everyone's handwriting and typed up the notes for our files. Even though it wasn't in her job description, she made the best coffee for us every morning. Kimberly was about 23 or 24, I would guess. She had short blonde hair, deep hazel eyes, and a very pretty face, but she was about 50 pounds overweight. At 5'5", that was quite a lot for her to carry. Even with her lovely face, her larger stomach and backside took away from her overall appearance. I knew that Kimberly cared about her weight because she often mentioned how she felt fat. It made me uncomfortable to hear her talk that way, but I realized it was her way of protecting herself. What mattered to me was that Kimberly was really good at her job and a valuable part of my team. The news about Zaba's sale came as a surprise. The Zaba brothers didn't even have the bravery to tell the staff themselves. They had their lawyer make the announcement. I was frustrated because all the stock options the brothers had promised were gone with the news. Beyond that, I felt uncertain about the change. Carol was just as upset and confused as I was, but she encouraged me to stick it out to see how the new owners would handle things. They sent a senior vice president to help with the transition, and he focused on the main office at first. Zaba had grown from 5 employees when I started to over 150. I learned that the new VP would begin in the accounting department and then learn about the entire company. It wasn't long before I found out that the VP overseeing Zaba security software was Jacob Sanders. While I was worried about him heading up the transition, I also discovered that my pay would increase by $35,000 and Carol's by $15,000 to align with the new company. A part of me said to run away, but Carol insisted we shouldn't leave our jobs, especially with the pay raises. Plus, she reminded me, Jacob would only be there for 6 months or so before moving on. The first change I noticed was the hiring of 4 new programmers who were placed in the bullpen. They all came from Harvard, but none were as skilled as the members of my team. Not only were they not very good, but they also acted arrogantly. Right away, they started bothering Kimberly. Sometimes it was inappropriate, and other times it was just plain mean. I tried to talk to them and explain that their behavior was not okay, but they didn't listen. Instead, they continued to bother Kimberly when they thought I wasn't watching. I finally called all 4 of them into a meeting room and laid down the rules. They pretended to listen, but it was clear they weren't going to change their behavior. Besides bothering Kimberly, they were difficult to work with, and no one on my team liked them. I decided I wanted them gone. Unfortunately, I couldn't fire them because Jacob had hired them. I knew he would ignore my requests to let them go. I was aware that Kimberly came in early each day to make coffee and set up the office. After I confronted those four about how they treated her, I noticed they started coming in early too. I figured out they were using that time to bother her. I could see Kimberly was getting close to quitting, even though she enjoyed working at Zaba and needed the job. So I decided to arrive early and catch them in the act. Hiding in the supply closet near our kitchen, I had my cell phone ready. Just as I thought, Kimberly showed up and began making coffee. A few minutes later, the four of them arrived and the teasing started. "Hey, Chubby." Ted, the leader, teased Kimberly. "Show us what you've got." Fred added, "I want to see more of you. He'll pull your things down." The other two chimed in, saying they would help him. Seeing tears on Kimberly's face was too much for me. I had enough evidence, so I stepped out of the closet. "You four, pack your things and leave. You're done here." "You can't fire us," Fred responded. "Mr. Sanders hired us, and he said only he can let us go." "That's true," I replied, showing my determined smile. "But I have proof of how you treated Kimberly. Let me explain your choices. You can either resign right now or I will report this to the authorities. It's up to you. You have 15 minutes to decide. You can even run to Jacob if you'd like, but I don't think he will help you." 15 minutes later, I had their resignations and they were gone. Kimberly looked relieved and thankful. "I'm sorry for what those four put you through," I told her after they had left. "I should have acted sooner. If anything like this happens again, please come to me right away." "You're a kind person, and those four were just mean." Kimberly let out a small cry and thanked me for standing up for her. I told her that was part of my job, but I felt I hadn't done it well because she had to endure too much from those mean people. "Mr. Arnold, you don't know how much this means to me," she said as she wiped her tears. "I was going to quit, but I didn't know what I'd do without this job. I wasn't sure I could find another one as good." "I'm really sorry you had to deal with all that," I said. "I can see you're upset. If you want to take the rest of the day off, I'll make sure it doesn't count against your personal days or sick time." "Thank you, Mr. Arnold, but I'd rather stay at work," she replied. After that, Kimberly seemed eager to help me in any way she could. I tried to tell her I was just doing my job, and I reminded her that I hadn't done it well considering what she went through. Soon after, Jacob called me into his office as soon as he found out I had forced his programmers to leave. "I want those programmers back," he said immediately when I walked in. "That's not happening," I replied firmly. "I have proof that those four mistreated our department's assistant. If you want to bring them back, go ahead. But I can promise you there will be a lawsuit against them, the company, and you. I doubt your bosses would like that." Jacob stared at me, but then he changed his tone and backed down. He pretended he didn't know everything that happened, but I figured out he was not being honest that night. Carol came home and criticized me for my actions towards Jacob. She thought I was wrong for threatening our boss. I should have paid attention to my instincts, which were warning me. But when things returned to normal at home, I ignored what happened. I believed Carol loved me and only me. If I had listened to my feelings, I might not be in this situation now. But I let Jacob and my wife make me feel too secure. For the 2 months of the merger, life between Carol and me stayed the same. I found out the company that bought us was called Unity Software. They were about the same size as us, but mostly focused on government work. Zaba helped them reach the commercial market. And no, Jacob's dad didn't own the company. His family made their money from manufacturing pipes and wiring. But Jacob's father sold the business when Jacob was still in college. I could say many things about Jacob, but I couldn't say he was unskilled. He was doing a great job bringing the two companies together. He even managed to convince the board to keep the Zaba name because it was seen as better. What I didn't know was that Jacob had completed the merger in just 8 weeks. After that, he started charming my easily influenced wife. Just like in high school, Jacob was able to win over Carol. Despite my warnings, Carol seemed taken with him and often praised the work he was doing. I kept cautioning her about Jacob, but she claimed I was just jealous. By the 4th month of the transition, Carol announced that she was going to have a baby. I was overjoyed. However, our intimate life had started to fade. We went from being together 3 times a week to only once every couple of weeks. I thought it was because Carol was pregnant. Then we stopped having lunches together, and finally, Carol stopped carpooling with me. Everything came to a head one morning when Carol stopped me before I left for work. I was surprised to see her still at home since she had been leaving an hour earlier than me lately. "Michael, we need to talk," she said, signaling me to sit on the couch. I sat down, puzzled about why a conversation was necessary this early. What Carol told me changed everything. "I'm really sorry to say this," Carol began, her eyes serious, "but I've fallen in love with Jacob, and he loves me too." I sat in shock, staring at her. I realized she wasn't sorry for anything at all. Finally, I couldn't hold back my reaction. "Are you out of your mind?" "I told you Jacob is trouble, and he's trying to come between us. I can't believe you believe his lies." "He's not trouble," Carol reacted. "He's a kind and caring man. He gets me in a way you never have." Each word she spoke felt like a blow to my heart. I was desperate, so I tried to reason with her. "What about our baby?" I asked gently. "Doesn't that matter to you?" "The baby isn't yours," Carol replied with a tight smile. I was shocked by what she said. "That's not true." "It is true," she insisted. "We hadn't been close for 2 weeks before I found out I was expecting." Now I was furious. "You've betrayed me. You've been seeing him." "It's my life, and I can make my own choices," she yelled. "You don't control me." Devastated doesn't even begin to explain how I felt. But my father had once told me never to show hurt in front of a woman. Keeping my cool was the hardest thing I've ever had to do. Still, I managed to hold it together and smile at her. "You said Jacob understands you better than I do," I said with a tight laugh. "You're right, he does. He understands you're naive. You really are. But you know what? You both deserve each other. He's not a good person, and you're making a mistake." "Forget you, Michael," Carol shouted. "No, that's not going to happen again," I said calmly. "But just so you know, I'm not leaving this house. You can move in with Jacob." "We'll see about that," Carol said as she walked towards the bedroom. What a terrible situation I found myself in. Learning that my wife had been unfaithful was so hard to take. I felt a strong urge to confront her, but I couldn't bring myself to hurt her. Jacob, however, was another story. I felt the anger build as I drove to work. I thought about quitting my job and confronting Jacob, and not necessarily in that order. I ran into Jacob as he was entering the building. He didn't look worried at all and even smiled at me. I thought it was just like Carol to keep such a big secret from me without telling Jacob first. She was very independent. I suspected Jacob would wait to share the truth about the situation until after the baby was born. Then he would take both my wife and their child away. It felt like he was winning. Fueled by rage, I walked up to him, and he just kept smiling. In that moment, I lost it and punched him in the face. Blood started to drip down, but I wasn't finished. I kept hitting him until he fell to the ground. I left him curled up on the floor as a few security guards rushed over. Later, I found out he lost some teeth and had a broken nose. I didn't come out of it unhurt either. I had broken 2 fingers on my left hand. I went to my desk and started packing up my things. Kimberly noticed me and looked worried. "What's wrong?" she asked. "Jacob has been unfaithful with my wife, and now she wants to leave me for him. I just lost my temper with him, so I guess I'm fired. Even if they don't let me go, I'm quitting." The rest of my coworkers were shocked to hear what had happened. My team was not only upset for me, but also worried about their own jobs. I reassured them that my situation wouldn't affect their jobs. Once everyone felt calmer and secure, I went back to packing my things. But I didn't finish because the police showed up, and I was taken away. I didn't think this would happen so quickly. As they put handcuffs on me, I asked Kimberly if she could gather my belongings and take them home. After my mugshot was taken and my fingerprints were recorded, I was given some paper towels to clean my hands, and I was allowed to make a phone call. But I wasn't sure whom to call. My parents were away on a cruise, living far away in San Diego while I was in Nashville. I definitely didn't want to call Carol. Finally, I decided to reach out to Kimberly. Maybe she could help me find a lawyer. But when I called the office, the receptionist told me Kimberly had gone home for the day. Feeling lost, I sat in my cell, feeling angry and thinking about how to win my wife back. I couldn't stop thinking about how Carol could betray me so coldly. The idea of revenge filled my mind. As the day dragged on in jail, I realized Jacob had a plan, and my problems were just starting. I knew Jacob didn't expect to be confronted today. Still, I was sure he thought he could catch me off guard when the time was right. I guess I messed that part of his plan up. Around 4 that afternoon, I was brought before a judge. Since I didn't have a lawyer, they gave me a public defender. To my dismay, he looked very young and unprepared. He quickly tried to go through my file as the judge became annoyed. "Counselor," the judge said firmly, "does your client plead guilty or not guilty?" The lawyer looked at me, unsure, so I stepped in and said clearly, "Not guilty." "Thank goodness," the judge replied. "Bail is set at $2,500 cash or check." I realized I didn't have enough cash and didn't carry checks with me. So I looked at the judge and said, "Excuse me, Your Honor, but I don't have that much cash, and I don't carry checks." "Is there a way for me to reach a bail bondsman?" I asked. "My clerk can help you with that and will let you know your court date," he replied. But just as he was about to call the next case, I heard a voice behind me. "He'll pay his bail." I turned around and saw Kimberly holding her checkbook. I was shocked to see her in the courtroom and really moved that she came to support me. "He'll pay you back as soon as I can get to an ATM, I promised her. "I'm not worried about it," she said gently, noticing my injured hand. "Does it hurt a lot?" "Honestly, it's nothing compared to the hurt from Carol's betrayal," I admitted. "For what it's worth," Kimberly said, looking into my eyes, "I think your wife made a big mistake leaving you for Jacob." I smiled at her kindness. Just then, a young man stepped forward. "Are you Michael Arnold?" "Yeah," I replied, and he handed me an envelope saying, "You've been served." I shouldn't have been surprised, but the speed of it all made it clear that Jacob and Carol had planned this for a while. It felt like another blow to my heart. "Let's get something to eat after I get some cash from the ATM, I said, feeling down. But when I tried to use my card, it didn't work. I called the bank and learned that all my accounts were frozen and would stay that way until the court decided otherwise. I also found out that my other savings had been frozen, and my credit cards were canceled. A quick look in my wallet showed I had $126 and a hidden $100 bill. "Looks like Carol and Jacob have frozen all my money," I told Kimberly. "I'm not sure what I will do, but at least I can buy you dinner." "No, you're not," Kimberly insisted. "You're coming to my apartment and it'll make dinner for us." I couldn't deny that her offer was appealing. It didn't make sense for me to spend the little cash I had on eating out. We picked up my car and I followed her to her apartment. I couldn't believe how helpful she was. She was just a coworker, yet I felt grateful and determined to repay her as soon as I could sort out my finances. Over dinner, I felt pretty low. To make matters worse, my fingers hurt a lot. I had put ice on them when I got to Kimberly's place, but the pain was still there. After watching me wince in pain, Kimberly finally took out a bottle of pain medicine she had for a dental issue. I took one, and after about 30 minutes, the pain eased up a lot. Still, I wasn't good company. "They really did a number on me," I sighed. "I feel completely messed up. I can't even think about getting back at Jacob or Carol right now because it would just come back to haunt me. But someday, I plan to make sure they pay for what they did." "Mr. Arnold," Kimberly said softly. "Please call me Michael," I replied. "I'm not your boss anymore. Besides, what you've done for me today makes you a great friend." Kimberly smiled and continued. "Michael, my mother left my father for another man. I had to go live with her and I hated it. Her partner was no good, just like Jacob. They lived together for 10 years, but he never married her, and eventually he left for someone younger. My father was bitter and tried to take revenge on my mother for years. He ended up in trouble with the law multiple times and died feeling defeated. Don't waste your life on revenge. My dad once told me he wished he hadn't let my mother's actions destroy him. He wished he had just moved on. Now my mother lives alone in an assisted living home and struggles with health problems from smoking for years. I visit her once a week, even though I still have some hard feelings toward her. Every week, she tells me how she regrets leaving my father. So please don't waste your life on revenge." I nodded, knowing she was probably right. But at that moment, I still had no plans to let those two off the hook. My anger was still simmering, and I wanted to make them pay. After helping clean up the dishes, I told Kimberly I should find a cheap motel for the night. Her response was quick. "No, you're not doing that. You will stay here. I have a spare bedroom, and you're welcome to it." "Kimberly, you've been the only bright spot in this difficult time of my life. I don't want to impose on you." "First of all, it's not an imposition," she insisted. "Second, if you stay here, I can go to work tomorrow and find out what's going on." Once again, Kimberly made a lot of sense, so I accepted her invitation. The next morning, Kimberly called me to let me know that I had been let go from my job. She then instructed me to use her computer and write a letter asking HR to send my final paycheck to her address. Shirley, who was in charge of human resources, wasn't sure if the company needed to pay my vacation time and sick leave, but she thought it should be included in the letter. "But the courts have frozen all my money," I reminded her. Shirley explained that the court's order only affected the bank accounts. She urged me to send the letter quickly, before Jacob or Carol noticed what I was up to. Following Kimberly's advice, I faxed the information and soon received a reply saying I would get a check for $425.57 in a few days. They mentioned they needed to look into the law to see if the company had to pay for vacation or sick leave. In the end, they didn't have to pay that. Still, getting nearly $5,000 was a nice boost for me. When Kimberly returned home, she shared that Jacob hadn't come in that day, but Carol was angry at me for causing trouble with her boyfriend. We found that funny. I decided to stay at Kimberly's until I received my check. During this time, I worked on my resume and began searching for a job. I quickly realized that Jacob and Carol had warned others about me. Since I worked in cybersecurity, no one wanted to hire me with a felony conviction hanging over me. When my check arrived, I signed it over to Kimberly, who deposited it into her account. I didn't want to risk opening a new account that could also be frozen. Again, when I told Kimberly I would find my own place, she was upset. She reminded me that I probably couldn't rent anything without a checking account and that my credit rating would show my financial troubles. "Please just stay here until you have a new job," she pleaded. "And in the meantime, you can look for a lawyer." I finally agreed. The lawyer I hired accepted me after I paid a $2,000 fee. It was worth it, as he quickly asked the courts to let me use some money from our checking and savings accounts. The courts agreed to allow me enough for a basic lifestyle, which included paying my lawyer. After 8 days at Kimberly's apartment, I felt it was time to move out. I found an apartment in her building and paid the necessary deposit. That Saturday, Kimberly helped me buy some basic furniture for my new home. I also took her out for dinner, as I had promised. Kimberly wanted to go to Olive Garden, which I liked too. During dinner, I looked at her more closely. She had a lovely face, but the extra weight she carried slightly overshadowed her beauty. I could see that Kimberly felt insecure about her weight. Then I had an idea that I hoped wouldn't upset her. I thought about it and decided to suggest something. "I just found out that our building has a gym," I said casually. "I'd like to use it, but I'd really like someone to go with me. Would you want to join?" "You really want to be seen with me?" she asked, moving her hands over her sides, pointing to her weight. "Yes, I do," I said eagerly. "Unless you'd prefer not to be seen with someone like me." That got the response I was hoping for. Kimberly didn't want to go to the gym because she was worried about her appearance, but she also didn't want to upset me. So, she agreed. We made a plan to go 4 times a week at 6 in the morning when it was quiet. By the end of the first week, Kimberly realized she didn't need to feel embarrassed and began to enjoy our workouts. I continued looking for a job, but no one in the security software field wanted to hire me. Not until my legal issues were settled. My lawyer mentioned that there was a strong chance I would be found guilty of assault, but he was vague. He never told me how to lie. He did say that if I had lost my temper because of what my boss and wife did, that might help my case. And if I couldn't remember everything that happened, the court would have to consider that too. On the day of my trial, Kimberly took off work to be there for me. I was grateful for her support. When my lawyer found out Judge Parker would be the one in charge, he suggested I ask for a bench trial, where the judge alone makes the decision. He explained that this would please the judge, who had a reputation for being tough on dishonesty. The prosecutor called 3 witnesses to talk about the alleged assault. They shared what they had seen and heard. My lawyer asked them questions, getting them to admit they hadn't seen the start of the fight or heard me threaten Jacob. They couldn't even say for sure that Jacob hadn't started it. Then Jacob testified, giving his version of events. He described it as an unprovoked attack and insisted he hadn't thrown a punch, listing his injuries. My lawyer asked him about his relationship with my wife. Jacob lied, claiming they were just friends. When asked about the baby my wife was expecting, he said it was mine as far as he knew. When Jacob stepped down from the stand, he looked at me with a smirk as he went back to his seat. I was the only person my lawyer called to defend me. He only had me explain what happened the day of the alleged attack and what I remembered about it. I told him how that morning my wife surprised me by saying she was leaving me to be with my boss. I felt heartbroken when she revealed that the child I believed was mine was actually Jacob's. I shared that she had been the love of my life, but she had treated me badly. I mentioned seeing Jacob by the door and his smirk. After that, I said I couldn't remember anything else until I found myself packing things in a box at my desk. The prosecutor tried to confuse me with questions about my memory. He kept going over the events in detail. The truth was, I was so angry that morning that time seemed unclear to me. As he pushed me for specific times and actions, it became obvious I didn't have a clear memory. Then he questioned if I thought the court would believe that I suddenly didn't remember anything about the incident. I told him I had a bad headache on the way to work and saw flashes of light, which was true. I repeated that the only thing I clearly remembered was Jacob smirking at me. Then he asked if I knew for sure that the child my wife was expecting was Jacob's. I could only say what she had told me. Carol wasn't in court because no one had called her. My lawyer thought she would complicate things, and I guess the prosecutor felt the same way too. After I finished, the judge went to his office to think about his decision but returned in 10 minutes. "It's clear to me," Judge Parker said, "that Mr. Arnold was deeply hurt by a betrayal. I believe this shock affected his mind. I find Mr. Arnold not guilty." "That's unfair," Jacob shouted from his seat, making the judge bang his gavel and warn Jacob to behave. Seeing Jacob's angry face made me feel a little better. His win over me had just taken a small hit. However, I still wanted to get back at him. But with my recent escape from trouble, I knew I had to push those thoughts aside for now. Besides, I had no idea how I would strike back at either of them. Outside the courtroom, I saw Jacob waiting for me. I thought about provoking him into a conflict. I wasn't sure how things would go, so I called a bailiff over. "I'm not allowed to be close to this man, but he won't let me leave." The bailiff glanced at Jacob and told him to move on. Jacob shouted back, "This isn't over. I'm going to take action against you." That worried me, so I asked my lawyer, "Can he really do that?" "Anyone can try," he said, smiling. "But his claim is weak. If you want to really put an end to it, just say you will help with his medical bills that insurance won't cover." So, I wrote a letter to his office saying just that. Jacob never replied and didn't follow through with any action. The next night, it was just over 9 weeks since Carol had dropped her shocking news on me. While I was still angry, my win in court had lifted my mood a bit, so I decided to take Kimberly out for dinner. I also had some good news to share with her. I want to clear up something for anyone thinking my story will be like others I've read. Those stories often show betrayed husbands starting their own businesses, becoming rich, and their ex-wives realizing they made a mistake. That was never going to be my story. I'm just a worker, a good worker, but still just a worker. Kimberly and I agreed to meet at a cozy Italian restaurant. She had to work a bit late that night because things weren't quite right in my old department. It wasn't serious, just some adjustments to my absence. When she arrived, she looked great. Kimberly had lost some weight, and the dress she wore really suited her. I stood up and kissed her on the cheek. "Wow, you look amazing. You've lost weight, haven't you?" Kimberly smiled brightly. "Yes, I've lost 16 pounds. I didn't notice at first, but those oversized sweatshirts and sweatpants can hide a lot. Anyway, you really do look great." The restaurant was small and warm, just the kind of place couples might choose for a date. But I didn't see this as a date. It was just a catch-up between close friends. "I asked you to dinner because I wanted to celebrate my win in court, and I have some news. I found a job." "That's fantastic." Kimberly smiled. "Who will you work for?" Sable Security from Jacksonville, Florida, I said. I didn't know they had an office here, Kimberly said, surprised. They don't. I'm going to have to move to Jacksonville. I was really surprised when Kimberly's expression changed and tears started to fall down her cheeks. I thought you'd be happy for me, I said, puzzled. I am glad you found a job, Kimberly replied, wiping her tears. But you're going to be 600 miles away. Kimberly, do you remember when you told me not to let my wife's betrayal fill me with anger? She nodded. I understand now that the only way I can deal with this is to create some space between Carol and me and let time help me heal. I get it, Kimberly said as she dried her eyes. It's just that I will really miss you. I've enjoyed having a friend. Hey, I'm just a phone call away, I said, trying to lighten the mood, but it didn't help much. I realized Kimberly probably didn't have many friends, so I suggested, you could come down and visit if you want. I don't know much about Jacksonville yet, but I'll find out. You'd really like me to visit? She asked. Of course, I replied quickly. Remember, I won't have any friends there either. When are you leaving? She finally asked. I don't start for another 45 days, but I have a lot to do before then. I need to find a place to live, open a new bank account, and go for some background checks. I think it will take at least 2 trips down there to get everything done. The mood lifted a bit after that, but I noticed that Kimberly didn't eat much. She seemed a little sad. As the day of my departure got closer, I saw her growing sadder each day. It felt like she might be hoping for something more between us. I must admit, this confused me because I thought Kimberly deserved someone better than me. I spent my last night before my new job at Kimberly's apartment. She made a lovely dinner followed by a chocolate cake that said, "I'll miss you" on top. After we cleaned up, we watched TV until it was bedtime. I gave her a quick kiss on the cheek before heading to the guest room. In the middle of the night, I felt the bed move a bit, and someone slipped in beside me. Still half asleep, I realized it was Kimberly. I froze for a moment, but then I felt a strong connection between us. I quickly relaxed, feeling grateful for our friendship in that moment. When I turned to her, she hugged me close. I felt her warm skin. It felt nice. I kissed her on the lips. She kissed back with strong feeling. Her breath was quick. She seemed very happy even though I did little. When I touched her gently, she felt even happier. She leaned back and made a soft sound. I held her for a few minutes. She felt good again. I moved closer and helped her feel better. Her breath got stronger. She made a loud, happy sound. I moved back up and kissed her softly. Please stay close to me, she asked. Kimberly, I am not ready, I tried to say. It is safe, she said quietly. Please be with me. I thought for a second and then moved closer to her. I held her gently. She felt ready. She had a small happy moment just from being close. But as we stayed together, she made louder, happy sounds. She held me tight when I could not wait anymore. She made another loud, happy sound. When it was over, I held her next to me. She was crying. I worried that I had upset her or done something wrong. What is wrong, Kimberly? I asked quickly. Did I upset you? No, I am just so happy, Kimberly said as she rested her head on my chest. I have been with a few men before, but this is the first time it felt like real love. Thank you. We lay there for a long time before Kimberly got out of bed. She walked 2 steps to the door and then came back. She leaned down and kissed me. Will you sleep in my bed with me tonight? I was glad to say yes, if only because my bed was messy. Besides, being with Kimberly seemed a great way to spend my last night in this city. I woke up the next morning to Kimberly touching me softly. When I was ready, she got close and held me. I have never seen more true joy and kindness on a person's face than I saw on Kimberly's that morning. After that, we took a shower together. It was there that I noticed Kimberly was really attractive. She was already beyond my reach, but I would hold on to this night forever. After breakfast, I checked my car to make sure I had everything. Then I turned to Kimberly and kissed her. She kissed me back with a warmth that I've never felt before. Sadly, it was time for me to leave. As I drove away, I glanced in the mirror and saw Kimberly sitting on the curb with her head in her hands, crying. I didn't want to go, but I believed it was for the best. I still had feelings for Carol, which made things complicated for me. It was odd because I wasn't thinking about revenge anymore. I just felt a heavy sadness in my heart. The ride to Jacksonville felt like I was moving away from something that had been weighing me down for too long. It had been 3 months since I left Nashville. 3 months since that emotional goodbye with Kimberly, whose cries stayed with me like a lost memory. December in 2025 had brought an unusually warm breeze to Florida, hinting at new beginnings, but I wasn't ready to believe that yet. I was still the same Michael Arnold, the man who had let Jacob Sanders come between me and my marriage. At least now I was driving away from that mess. I reached the city around noon with the sun sparkling off the Atlantic in the distance. During those long nights in my temporary Nashville rental, I had looked for apartments online. I chose a small one-bedroom near the beach, not fancy, but with a view that might help me forget the past. The realtor, a friendly woman named Maria, met me at the building with the keys. "You'll love it here," she said, smiling brightly. "It's a quiet neighborhood, and downtown is easy to access." As I walked inside, the empty space hit me hard. The walls were bare, the floors didn't feel homey, and the kitchenette looked like a simple bachelor pad. I explored the place, checking the bedroom and the tiny balcony overlooking the waves. It was so different from the house Carol and I had shared in Nashville. We had made plans for a family, shared laughter over meals, and built what I thought was a happy life. I had been wrong to believe in that dream. Now I was starting over with just a suitcase and a few boxes I had sent ahead. I spent the afternoon buying basic things: a bed frame from a discount store, some inexpensive sheets, and a coffee maker because Kimberly had gotten me used to good coffee. Unpacking felt like a routine task, but each item I placed was a small stand against my past. Freedom had a mixed taste, exciting in the light of day, but as night fell, the loneliness crept in, reminding me how isolated I truly was. The next morning, I went to Sable Security, my new workplace. The building was a shiny glass tower in the city, much fancier than Zaba's simpler office. I adjusted my tie in the elevator, feeling a buzz of nerves like I hadn't since my first day after graduating from Georgia Tech. Elena Ramirez, my boss, greeted me in the lobby. She was a sharp, professional woman in her 40s, with dark hair pulled back and an air of calm authority that reminded me a bit of Kimberly's quiet strength. "Michael, welcome aboard," she said, shaking my hand firmly. "We've heard great things about your work at Zaba. Let's get you settled." She took me to the main working area, an open space filled with desks, the soft hum of servers in the background, and screens showing lines of code. It was bigger than our old place at Zaba, with about 20 programmers instead of 9, but the atmosphere was familiar, the sound of keyboards and low conversations about risks and fixes. Elena introduced me to the team, a mix of enthusiastic young coders fresh from school and experienced people like me. "You'll start with a small project," she explained, handing me a folder. "We're checking the security for a client's online store. Find and fix any issues, standard work, but I want you to take the lead here." I jumped right in, setting up my desk and looking through the code. The work felt satisfying and helped me focus. My teammates were friendly enough. One guy, Tom, even made a joke about Florida's weather, but I found myself comparing it to my old group. Back at Zaba, we had been like family, with Kimberly keeping us energized and organized. Here it felt more businesslike, efficient, but less personal. By lunch, I had already noticed a few weak spots in the client's security system, and Elena nodded in approval when I updated her. "You're as sharp as they've said," she remarked. It was a small victory, but it eased some of the self-doubt that had stuck with me since I lost my last job. Still, as the day went on, thoughts of Jacob's grin and Carol's untrustworthiness lingered in my mind. I fought to push them away. This was my chance for a fresh start. That evening, back in my apartment, the weight of the day felt heavy like fog settling over the sea. I heated up a frozen meal, not nearly as comforting as Kimberly's cooking, and sat on the balcony, watching the waves crash under the moon's glow. Memories came rushing back without invitation. Carol and I on our honeymoon in the mountains, her laughter ringing out as we hiked, how she would curl up next to me on lazy Sundays, talking about having kids. It all felt so real, so solid. How had I not seen the truth? The anger that had fueled me in jail had faded to a dull ache, but it was still present, telling me that Jacob had outmatched me that time. I pushed it aside and grabbed my phone. It was time for our weekly call. Kimberly and I had stayed connected, her voice a comfort amid the chaos. "Hey, you," she said, sounding happier than I felt. "Hey, yourself," I replied, trying to sound cheerful. "How's everything in Nashville?" We talked about everyday things, first her job at Unity, which she had stuck with despite the challenges. Then she shared some good news. "I've lost another 10 pounds, Michael. The gym routine you started is really working. I even got a new dress that I feel good in." I laughed, imagining her. "That's great. You've always been beautiful. Now you're truly amazing." Our conversations had become warmer, filled with a special connection from our last time together. As we finished up, sleep remained out of reach for me. Eventually, I drifted off, but vivid dreams pulled me back. I saw Carol in a hospital bed, holding a baby that looked just like me, freckles and all. She smiled, but her eyes were sad, whispering, "It's yours, Michael." I woke up in a panic, my heart racing, the room spinning around me. What was happening? I hadn't thought about the child in weeks. Sure, it was Jacob's. But the dream stuck with me, stirring feelings of worry, like a warning I couldn't shake. My mind was replaying old troubles. I lay there until morning, wondering if my past was really finished with me. January arrived quietly, taking away the last bits of holiday joy and leaving me with the tough reality of my new life in Jacksonville. It had been a month since I had moved in, and while work at Sable kept me busy during the day, the nights felt different. I would lie in bed, thinking about that dream of Carol and the baby, wondering if my mind was trying to tell me something or just giving me trouble. I still felt like that kid from first grade, letting old hurts linger, but I was making an effort, really trying to move forward. Kimberly's calls were the best part of my week, her voice a warm light in the sea of uncertainty. We would talk about everything and nothing, her gym progress, my latest project, and the sound of the ocean at night. When she suggested visiting for a weekend, I eagerly agreed. "I could use some company," I said, and just like that, we made plans. She arrived on a Friday evening in early January 2026, her flight landing just as the sun began to set. I picked her up at the airport, spotting her in the crowd with that familiar short blonde hair, now styled with more confidence. She looked different, thinner, her hazel eyes shining brighter, and she carried herself with a grace that hadn't been there before. "Michael," she said, hugging me tightly. The scent of vanilla and flowers surrounded me, bringing a warmth I hadn't realized I missed. We drove back to my apartment in a comfortable silence at first, then chatted about the flight and the traffic. Once inside, I showed her around the simple space, the balcony view, and the little kitchen where I had tried to keep some wine. "It's not much," I said, rubbing the back of my neck, "but it's home for now." "It's perfect," she replied with a genuine smile. We decided to go out for dinner at a small Italian place downtown with candles and soft music. Over pasta and red wine, the conversation flowed easily. She told me about her routine back home and how our gym sessions had turned into a habit. "I've lost another 20 pounds since you left," she said, a touch of pride in her voice. "That routine you encouraged me to follow, it's changed everything. I feel stronger." I looked at her across the table, really focused on her. The extra weight that used to hide her features was fading away, showing the beautiful face I had always seen, now shining with a new confidence. It was the gym, sure, but also something deeper, her strength and the way she had helped me without asking for anything in return. "You look amazing," I said sincerely, reaching for her hand. "But you always did to me." The air around us changed, filled with memories of our last night in Nashville. Back at the apartment, things escalated, a kiss on the balcony under the stars, her hands on my shoulders, pulling me closer. We found our way to the bedroom, feeling comfortable together. The way she moved felt familiar yet new, more sure of herself. It wasn't just about being close. It was a reconnection, tender and passionate, reminding us of the joy we had shared before. Afterward, lying together in the sheets, I traced patterns on her back, feeling a warmth I hadn't known since everything fell apart. She was here, real and supportive, different from the person Carol had become. The next morning, over coffee on the balcony, Kimberly filled me in on the news from Nashville. She hesitated at first, but I needed to know about the past. Jacob and Carol got married, she said quietly, stirring her mug. It was quick, a small ceremony right after Christmas. But from what I hear, it's not all perfect. Jacob is being his usual controlling self, managing everything, even her. Carol looks tired, like she wishes things had gone differently. I leaned back, thinking about it. Part of me felt a bitter satisfaction. Jacob, always difficult, showing his true nature already? Good. Let Carol deal with the choices she made. But part of me, the part still hurt by the betrayal, felt sad. We had been happy once, or so I believed. She deserves it, I whispered, though my words didn't sound strong. She picked him, but it bothers me that she's not happy, or maybe it just hurts that I still care. Kimberly held my arm gently. It's okay to feel like this. It doesn't make you weak, it makes you human. We spent the day walking around Jacksonville, strolling on the beach, having lunch at a seaside cafe, and chatting about anything except the past. Her company made the loneliness fade a bit, reminding me that some connections could still be good. That evening, as we sat on the couch watching the waves through the window, Kimberly shared something surprising. After you left, things at Unity got strange, she said, her voice becoming more cautious. Jacob started noticing me more, not directly at first, just lingering glances and comments about my work. Then one day in the break room, he made a suggestion that I could advance if I played nice. It felt like harassment, the kind he thinks he can get away with because of who he is. I felt a wave of anger, a familiar heat, the same rage I felt when I confronted him outside Zaba. What a manipulator, I said through clenched teeth. He can't just let things be, can he? First he took my wife and now he's bothering you? I should have handled it when I had the chance. She placed her hand on my chest, calming me down. I took care of it, talked to him, and reported his behavior to HR anonymously. But it made me think. You've moved on, Michael. Maybe it's time for me to do the same. We talked for hours, discussing the distance between us. 600 miles was a challenge, but what we shared felt worth pursuing. Let's give this a try, I finally said, pulling her closer. Long distance for now, and see how it goes. She agreed, her kiss confirming our decision, adding a spark of hope to the uncertainty. Her visit ended too quickly with a tearful goodbye at the airport on Sunday. As her plane flew away, I drove home feeling lighter, with warmth still lingering. But that news about Jacob's actions troubled me, proof that he was still the same jealous person from school, always wanting what wasn't his. I wasn't ready to face it yet, but it stirred old feelings, reminding me that some rivalries never really go away. The weeks after Kimberly's visit fell into a routine that began to feel almost normal, a fragile cover against my past. By mid-February 2026, I had dedicated myself to my work at Sable Security with a focus I hadn't had in a long time. The projects kept coming, each one a tricky challenge that needed the skills I had developed over years of fixing digital problems. Elena noticed my hard work early on, and it paid off when she called me into her office one afternoon, holding a stack of papers. "Michael, you've done really well," she said, her tone serious but encouraging. "The online security system you upgraded last month? The client loved it. I'm giving you a chance to lead a bigger project, a government contractors network update. It's important, and the deadline is tight. Do you think you can manage it?" I nodded, feeling a sense of pride. "Definitely. I've worked on similar projects before. We'll make sure it's secure." She handed me the details, and I started working on it that same day. The office was buzzing around me as I identified weaknesses, old security methods, possible entry points in the system. It felt like tough work at first, but as I put the pieces together, I felt renewed. Back at Zaba, I had been the main person for problem solving, leading a team that trusted me. Here, it was similar, but even more exciting. The tools were better, and the project was larger. By the end of the week, I had fixed a serious flaw that could have put private data at risk, and Elena quickly gathered the team to recognize it. "This is the insight we need," she said, giving me a nod. The applause from the team was soft but honest, and for the first time in months, I felt like I was building something real, not just getting by. It wasn't the big success the Zaba brothers had promised. but it was progress proof that my past mistakes didn't define me. That feeling carried me through the next few days until an unexpected email disrupted my peace. It arrived late one evening while I was reviewing code at my desk. The subject line seemed harmless, concern regarding recent hire, but the message hit hard. "We have been informed," the unnamed sender wrote, "that Michael Arnold has a past of erratic behavior, involved in a serious incident with a superior, leading to significant injuries. Please be cautious. Mental health issues may affect work performance." My stomach churned. I read it again. The words blurred as anger rose up. This wasn't random. It felt like Jacob's doing. The details matched the altercation outside Zaba, the broken nose, lost teeth, and injuries I had caused in a moment of rage, but twisted to make me seem like a danger. I quickly forwarded it to Elena, my hands trembling as I wrote a short note. "This is from my past. Open to talk." She called me to her office the next morning, the email printed out on her desk. "Let's discuss this, Michael." "What's this about?" I sat down and took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. I explained the issues I had with Jacob from school, the hurt I felt from Carol, and the day I lost control and confronted Jacob. I didn't hold back, showing how her words had pushed me too far. "The court said it was temporary insanity," I said. "I was cleared, but someone is bringing this back up to ruin my chances." Elena listened quietly, her face hard to read. When I finished, she leaned back in her chair. "I checked your references from Zaba. They were glowing, except for the issue you had. Your work here is good, too. This feels like someone is trying to cause problems for you. Well, look into the source, but for now, you're still on the project. I trust my instincts." Her support helped ease the tightness in my chest, but the incident stayed on my mind, reminding me that Jacob was still a threat. I thanked her and went back to my desk, but I couldn't concentrate. Why was this happening now? Was he still trying to compete with me from a distance? A few days later, during lunch with Tom, one of the experienced coders, I got some news. We were at a deli, casually talking about what was new in the industry. "I heard Unity Software is expanding south," he said. "They're opening a new office in Jacksonville next quarter. They're aiming for the same government contracts we're after. It could get competitive." I stopped in my tracks, fork paused in the air. Unity, that was Jacob's territory. "Are you sure? What's their plan?" Tom shrugged. "I guess it's about market share. Florida's technology scene is growing. Their VP, a guy named Sanders, is really pushing for it. It's a bold move, but it could backfire if they go too far." Sanders. It all made sense now. The email, the timing. Jacob wasn't satisfied with just taking my wife and my old job. He was now trying to invade my new space, turning professional rivalry into something personal again. I thought back to high school when he would always come in and take the girls I liked, needing to feel superior. Anger bubbled up inside me, but I pushed it down. I remembered Kimberly's advice: don't let revenge consume you. I wouldn't give Jacob the satisfaction of reacting again. Instead, I would focus on succeeding at Sable, proving I was better without making a scene. But as I walked back to the office, worry ate at me. What if Jacob's presence here caused more problems? The pressure felt tight, but I promised myself to remain alert instead of seeking revenge. For now. March arrived quietly, with the Florida sun warming the days even as my mind swirled with thoughts about Unity's plans. It was early in the month, and 2026 felt more like an old wound than a fresh beginning. I had thrown myself into my work on a government project at Sable, leading late-night meetings with my team to strengthen our security measures. Elena's support encouraged me, but Jacob's presence felt like a shadow that only grew darker with time, his arrival in Jacksonville lurking like a storm. I often spoke with Kimberly. Her calm voice reminded me to stay focused. "Don't let him distract you," she would say. I agreed, though deep down, I still felt the old anger rising. One evening, I sat on the balcony with a drink, watching the waves come in when my phone buzzed. It was a number I didn't recognize from Nashville. I almost ignored it, thinking it might be a salesperson or a wrong number, but something pushed me to answer. "Hello? Michael? It's Carol." Her voice trembled on the other end, full of sadness and fatigue. I froze, nearly dropping my drink. Carol, the person who had hurt me deeply, who had chosen Jacob over me. Hearing her after months of silence felt like reopening an old wound. "What do you want?" I asked, my voice sharper than I meant it to be, full of the bitterness that still lingered. She cried softly, trying to hold back her tears. I need to talk to you. The baby arrived early, 2 weeks ago. It was complicated, a premature birth. Has okay now, but it was serious." The baby. The one she had claimed was Jacob's, the final betrayal in our marriage. I felt a strange mixture of indifference and curiosity. "Congratulations, I guess." "But why are you calling me? That's your life now." She paused, her breath catching. "Michael, please. I had a DNA test done after the birth. The doctor suggested it because of the early delivery. I was sure it was Jacob's based on the timing of things, but I miscalculated my dates. The stress, it messed everything up. The results just came back. Has yours. Our son is yours." The world felt like it was spinning. I jumped up, pacing the small balcony as her words hit me. My son. After all the lies, the betrayal. Afraid of the truth, I thought about the details she shared. The early birth helped make sense of her claim about the timing. But if it was true, then she had been mistaken, or worse, had let Jacob influence her. "You're lying," I whispered, though my words faltered. "Why tell me this now? What do you want?" "No trick," she insisted, her cries growing louder. "I was scared, Michael." Jacob pushed me to say the child was his, wanting to make things simple. But holding our son and seeing his eyes, so much like yours, I couldn't live with that lie any longer. I leaned against the railing, the loud waves matching the storm in my mind. A brief feeling of joy flickered at the thought of a child, my child, but it faded into anger. It was a double betrayal. First, the affair, and now this lie about paternity. "You foolish person," I said, repeating my words from that morning. "You let him trick you into believing this child wasn't mine? And now you tell me this? What do you expect from me, Carol? Just to move on?" She didn't argue. She just cried. "I don't expect anything. I just thought you should know. His name is Ethan. I can send you pictures and proof." We talked, or rather, she spoke while I simmered for another 30 minutes. She shared that Jacob's charm had faded after their wedding, and he had become controlling. "He's been distant, working late," she confessed. "I saw him texting his new secretary flirty messages and late-night meetings. It's like he got what he wanted from me and moved on." The news hit hard. Jacob, the one who always needed to win, cheating on the woman he had taken from me. It should have felt good, but it just added to the mess. I was momentarily speechless, caught in a storm of feelings, anger at the lies, a strange relief that the child was mine, and a bit of pity for Carol's situation. "So he's already being unfaithful," I said flatly. "Figures, but that doesn't change what you did to us." "I know," she said quietly. "I'm so sorry, for everything." Hanging up felt like shutting a door on a raging storm. I walked around the apartment, my mind racing. A son, Ethan. The dream I had months ago flashed back, that strange feeling now seeming true. Joy battled with anger. I wanted to shout, to celebrate, to curse. But I knew I needed to focus on practical things. I had to find proof, get legal advice. Yet telling Kimberly was the biggest worry. We had just started building something together, and letting her know this felt like a betrayal too. I decided to keep it to myself for now, at least until I could think more clearly. I felt torn happy about the chance of being a dad, but still resentful towards Carol. The next day, I requested the DNA results and photos in an email. Seeing Ethan's face, freckles on his tiny nose, eyes just like mine, touched something deep inside me. He was real, my son. A part of the family I had lost. But going back to Nashville meant dealing with the turmoil again. "Okay," I texted Carol. "I'll come to see him, but this changes nothing between us. You're still the one who broke everything." She quickly agreed, and I could feel her relief, even through the text. As I booked a flight for the next weekend, I felt guilt for not telling Kimberly. Our calls that week were tough for me, and I brushed off my distractions as work stress. Going back felt necessary, a pull toward something unknown that could either help or ruin the small peace I had. The flight back to Nashville felt like stepping into a time loop, each mile bringing me closer to a life I had left behind but couldn't fully escape. It was late March, and the air outside the plane was crisp and indifferent, just like my determination. I had struggled with this decision all week. The DNA results were undeniable proof that Ethan was my son, the early birth explaining Carol's mistake with the timeline. Yet I felt joy mixed with anger because of her deception. I kept this from Kimberly longer than I should have, giving vague answers during our calls about a quick trip for some things. The guilt bothered me, but I needed to see Ethan first, to make it real before bringing her into this complicated situation. When I landed at the airport, I felt a mix of fear and excitement. Carol offered to pick me up, but I chose to rent a car instead so I could leave if things went wrong. The drive to her house was strange. The streets looked the same, yet felt different. She opened the door, looking tired, her eyes red as if she hadn't slept much. "He's napping," she said quietly, stepping aside. There was no hug, no small talk. We both knew it wasn't a stable moment. Inside, the house was filled with memories. The couch where we had tough conversations, the kitchen where we cooked together. But now, a small crib sat in the living room, a tiny boy bundled up inside. I walked slowly, my heart racing. Ethan moved a bit as I leaned over, and when his eyes opened blue like mine with faint freckles on his nose, I felt a rush of feelings. He was small and fragile, but definitely a part of me. I reached out, hesitated for a moment, then gently picked him up, holding him close. His warmth filled me with emotion. Memories flooded back. Carol and I hoping for kids during our early years of marriage, planning nursery colors and joking about what traits he'd inherit. Those dreams had broken, but here he was, real and mine. Tears blurred my vision as I held him, and I felt a deep need to protect him that pushed away my anger. "Hey, little guy," I whispered, my voice shaky. "I'm your dad." These words felt strange yet true, a flicker of hope amidst the changes. Carol watched silently from the doorway at first. "He looks just like you did in old photos," she said softly. We then talked about practical things, feeding times, and doctor visits, trying to keep things focused and avoid the complex feelings between us. But the feelings were intense. I was angry with her for lying, yet seeing Ethan filled me with unexpected warmth. "I won't fight about custody," I finally said, "but I want to be involved. Tests, visits, whatever it takes." She nodded, looking relieved. "That's all I want too." I spent the afternoon there, holding him, feeding him, and taking in every little detail. Leaving was harder than getting there, but I promised to come back soon. Back at the hotel, reality hit me. I had a son, our son, and that changed everything. The next morning, I called Kimberly, the secret too heavy to keep to myself. "I need to tell you something," I began, sharing everything. Carol's call, the DNA results, the visit. Her silence felt long. Then she spoke, her voice steady but filled with sadness. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" "I was scared," I said, "of how it would change things between us." She sighed. "I'm coming down. You shouldn't face this alone." I felt grateful. She was coming in that evening, her support always reassuring. When she arrived at the hotel, I hugged her tightly, feeling grounded by her presence. She looked different, another 10 pounds gone since her last visit. Her body toned from working out, her confidence shining in a simple dress that highlighted her hazel eyes. "You've been busy," I said, touching her arm. "You look amazing." She smiled slightly, but there was concern in her expression. "Thanks to our gym sessions, but let's focus on you." Over dinner in the room takeout to avoid being seen, she shared her own news. "I quit my job last week. Jacob's behavior got worse after you left unwanted advances. Pressure to stay late. I had it all documented, but HR was slow to act. It was time to go." Anger rose inside me again. That guy? He just won't stop, will he? But seeing her now, strong and resilient, made me admire her even more. She had grown from the shy assistant into someone fierce and beautiful inside and out. As I held her that night, the closeness reassured me, and I realized this was love, real and straightforward. unlike what I had with Carol. "I don't deserve you," I whispered. "You do," she answered. "We're in this together." The peace was broken the next day when a certified letter arrived at the hotel, a court summons from Jacob, asking for full custody of Ethan because of my proven instability. He mentioned the incident outside Zaba, trying to paint me as a threat unfit to be a father. The news hit me hard, Jacob, now aware of the truth, using my past mistakes against me to take a child who wasn't even his. It connected back to my anger from earlier, his injured nose now a tool he was using in court. "This is his plan," I said quietly, crumpling the paper in my hands. "Steal my son, too." Kimberly read the message, her expression hardening. "We will fight this. You have rights." The situation brought a mix of anger and determination. Jacob's actions were not just personal. They felt like a declaration of conflict, dragging my hopes down. But with Kimberly beside me, I felt a spark of strength I wouldn't let him win this time. The custody papers from Jacob loomed over us like a dark cloud, turning our Nashville hotel room into a makeshift battleground. Late March turned into April, and with Kimberly's steady support, I felt less lost, even though the depth of the betrayal left me struggling with a deep sense of helplessness. We had extended our stay, setting up visits with Ethan while planning our next steps. Carol had been helpful, allowing us some supervised time with the boy, his small hand gripping my finger a clear reminder of the legal storm brewing around us. But Jacob's move had turned everything up a notch, making me face how far his conflict could go. Back in Jacksonville, I took a short break from work when Elena called me through video chat. Her concern was clear, even from a distance. "I heard about your personal troubles," she said, her professional tone softening with understanding. "But there's something you need to know. That anonymous email? We managed to trace it, though it was difficult. It came from a Nashville IP that connects to Unity. Our security team found some issues with Unity's recent business proposals." She showed me her screen, revealing internal documents and financial problems. It connected back to Jacob's time at Zaba during the merger. The people I had removed for troubling Kimberly weren't just unqualified. Elena's information suggested they were involved in shady dealings, creating fake contracts and misusing funds. "There are signs of fraud," she explained. "It started small overcharging and fake vendors, but it's growing. Unity's expansion to Jacksonville? It's a cover to hide the financial problems in new markets." The news left me shocked. Jacob, the privileged one in his family, resorting to dishonest practices. It fit perfectly with his history, the way he set me up in high school to get me expelled. Now, he was causing harm on a corporate level, jeopardizing the company he had taken over. I began gathering evidence carefully. Old Zaba reports I had saved, comparing them with Elena's findings. Emails from my time there showed unusual billing hours that I had missed during the chaos. "This could really hurt him," I said quietly one late night, studying spreadsheets with Kimberly. But the work was slow and difficult. Each clue only heightened my frustration. I was trying to collect proof, yet felt trapped in Jacob's tangled web, my hands tied by the custody battle. A few days later, I received a direct threat after visiting Ethan. My phone rang. It was Jacob. I had blocked his number, but he called from a new line. I answered, my heart racing, with Kimberly urging me to be careful. "What do you want?" I asked, trying to keep calm. His laugh was smug, like when we were kids. "Oh, Michael, you're so predictable. I heard you are looking into old files. Think you're smart? I sent an email to your boss, consider this a warning. And this custody thing, Ethan is better off with me. You're unstable, remember? One wrong move, and I will make sure you don't see him again." He bragged about it, even mocking the child he knew wasn't his. "You manipulative jerk," I replied, my patience wearing thin. "This isn't just about Ethan, it's always about you winning. But you're making mistakes, Jacob. Those trails of dishonesty, they are catching up to you." He hesitated for a moment, a hint of worry in his silence, then quickly regained his anger. "Prove it. And good luck with the kid, my lawyers are really tough." The call ended, leaving me angry and conflicted inside. I wanted to drive straight to him and confront him, fists ready like the old days, but Kimberly's hand on mine stopped me. "Don't give him any reason to hurt you," she warned. I felt a mix of rage and helplessness. Jacob had all the power, threatening my son while his wrongdoings went unanswered. Later that evening, while we relaxed in the hotel, Kimberly shared some good news. "Remember the video from the group at work? The one where you saw those guys bothering me?" She showed me her laptop and began to pull up files. "I found more emails from Jacob after that day, trying to get me to take back my complaint, even suggesting bonuses if I stayed quiet. And look at this, a clip from the office security camera where he was standing too close to me the day after you left." The video was shocking. Jacob was cornering her, his hand brushing her arm in a way that felt wrong, and while we couldn't hear his words, his intentions were clear. "This shows his behavior," she said firmly. "It connects to the dishonesty if we prove he was trying to cover his tracks." Seeing her take charge and change from an unsure assistant to a determined ally was inspiring amidst the chaos. We spent hours planning, and while we gathered more evidence, I still felt a sense of helplessness. Jacob's threats lingered, and my role as a father was hanging by a thread. It was a growing betrayal, his grip tightening, but with these pieces, a chance to fight back felt possible. April felt long in Nashville, each day leading closer to the big confrontation. Kimberly and I turned our temporary hotel stay into a little home. After leaving the hotel, we rented a small 2-bedroom apartment nearby, giving us space to relax amid the rising pressure. Living together like this, even though it was stressful, made our bond stronger in ways I hadn't expected. Mornings began with shared coffee, her hand in mine as we talked about the day ahead. Evenings often ended quietly, feeling safe with her beside me. One night, after a tough time putting together evidence, we were lying close, city lights peeking through the blinds. "This feels right," I said softly. "You and me, facing this together. I truly love you, Kimberly. Not just as a friend. I mean really love you." She lifted her head and searched my eyes. "I've waited to hear that," she said quietly, her smile lighting up her face. We talked then, honestly, about her past worries, the weight that had once affected how she saw herself, and the ways she had built walls around it. "You saw through that from the beginning," she said. "Pushing me to the gym wasn't just about fitness. It was about believing in myself. Now look at me stronger, inside and out." Her journey, started by those early morning workouts, had grown into a confident woman beside me. Admitting my feelings deepened our bond, turning our determination into a shared mission. With our feelings settled, we turned our attention to the legal side. I contacted the lawyer who had handled my case, the one who worked hard to clear my name. He agreed to help with the custody case, his young appearance hiding a clever mind. "This is complicated," he said in his busy office when we first met. "Jacob's claim focuses on your instability, but we can counter with DNA evidence and his own wrongdoing." Kimberly and I gathered what we had, a video of the harassment and information about Elena's embezzlement from Sable. But the real breakthrough came when we examined old records I had saved. Late one evening, I sifted through digital files and noticed something troubling. There were unusual activity logs, unauthorized access during important events, signs of tampering to cover up stolen funds. "Look at this," I said to Kimberly, pointing to the timestamps. "These breaches match the times Jacob was in charge." He wasn't just taking money from the company. He was hiding what he did by ignoring the security rules I had put in place. It shocked me to learn that Jacob, the star student from Harvard, was involved in such activities. It reminded me of something he had done in high school, when he had tried to blame me for a graffiti prank. That was childish. Now it was serious, and could lead to bigger problems at Unity. "If we can prove this," the lawyer said later, "it could ruin his reputation as a good guardian." Carol, in cautious messages, started sharing her own observations. Screenshots of Jacob's strange emails and signs that he was struggling financially. She slowly began to contribute more, fueled by her disappointment, which made our case stronger. Our conversations turned into moments of surprising honesty. We met at a quiet coffee shop one afternoon, with Ethan safely in his carrier between us. She handed me more papers, bank statements showing odd money transfers, then took a breath and spoke. "Jacob's fixation on you isn't new," she said calmly. "He mentioned it when we were together. It started back in first grade over those freckles he teased you about. But it was more than that. He was jealous of your natural gifts, of how you didn't need wealth to succeed. One night, he admitted that proving he was better than you drove him, winning me over, getting the job, and now it's all a part of his need to show he's superior. Her words struck me deeply, revealing much about our past struggles. From the fights on the playground to his attempts to ruin special events, Jacob's behavior had always come from this jealousy. Hearing it from Carol made me see him differently, also strengthening my resolve. "He's tainted everything," I said, my anger softened by understanding. But this stops now. This situation was more than just a fight for custody. It was about closing a chapter on years of rivalry. As we prepared, our home turned into a base filled with planning sessions and moments of normal life. Ethan's visits lit up our days, his cheerful noises reminding me what was truly important. With our team coming together, the lawyer's skills, Elena's business insights, and Carol's inside knowledge, we readied ourselves for the challenge ahead, my determination growing sharper. The courtroom in Nashville buzzed with a familiar tension, like the anticipation before a schoolyard fight with Jacob. It was mid-May, and the custody hearing was finally here after weeks of gathering statements and evidence. I sat at the defense table, dressed formally but feeling vulnerable, my lawyer beside me making last-minute notes. Kimberly sat in the audience, her presence steadying, while Carol was also there, though she avoided making eye contact with me. Jacob sat across the aisle, grinning as if this was just another game he had set up to win. The judge, an older man with a serious look, started the session, and Jacob's team quickly painted me as the bad guy. They brought up the incident outside Zaba, acting like it had just happened. Jacob was the first to take the stand. His face showed he was pretending to be a victim, the marks from my punches barely visible under the lights. "Mr. Arnold attacked me without reason," he said, his voice calm but full of blame. "He broke my nose, knocked out teeth, and caused real harm, all because he couldn't face the truth about his marriage. This man is dangerous, Your Honor. He's not fit to be a parent." His lawyers added more, sharing medical records and witness statements from that day, twisting the court's past decision into proof of ongoing issues. "Mr. Arnold has a history of violence from childhood," one lawyer claimed, pointing to old school reports about our fights. I sat there, my fists clenched under the table, thoughts swirling. How had I ended up here? I was just a confused husband turned father, fighting for a son I hadn't known was mine against the same person who had troubled me since school. It felt so foolish, my past anger now used against me, but I stayed calm, whispering to my lawyer, "We can handle this." When the prosecution finished, it was our turn, and Kimberly took the stand. She walked up confidently, looking different from the person I once knew, thinner and self-assured, a big change from the unnoticed assistant. My lawyer helped her explain the harassment. A video played, showing the crude demands from Jacob's friends, then newer clips of Jacob's actions after I left. "He pressured me to keep quiet," she said clearly, offering promotions if I did and threats if I didn't. The courtroom buzzed as more evidence came out, but the real impact was when she connected it to the hacking. These events matched up with unauthorized system breaches at Zaba, which Mr. Sanders managed to hide financial problems. Jacob looked shocked, his lawyers objecting fiercely, but the judge let it continue. Then we showed data that Elena had collected graphs and numbers displayed, revealing money mismanagement linked directly to him, bloated contracts and misdirected funds during a merger. It was the crucial evidence we needed, showing how his personal actions were tied to bigger crimes. Then, as a surprise, Carol was called to testify. She stood up, a bit nervous at first, but her voice grew stronger as she spoke. "I was tricked," she said, looking straight at Jacob. "He made me believe the child wasn't Michael's and pushed for the divorce to keep him away. But the DNA tells the truth, and I've seen what he really is: cheating, lying, dishonest. Ethan deserves to know his real father." The news hit hard. Jacob jumped up, anger on his face, shouting back, but it was too late. Carol, the one I once cared about and lost, turning against him publicly, it was a betrayal he never expected, just like the one he'd done to me. The courtroom stirred with noise, the judge banging his gavel for order. At that moment, feelings surged. Satisfaction at Jacob's fall, sympathy for Carol's remorse, and a strong urge to protect Ethan. When the court took a short break, Jacob came up to me in the hallway, surrounded by his team, but his gaze was fierce. "Do you think this changes anything?" he said in a low voice only I could hear. You're still the same loser from grade school, always coming in second. His words hit a sensitive spot, making me want to fight back like I did in middle school when I finally stood up to him. I stepped closer, speaking softly but with intensity. Those freckles you made fun of? They're on my son now. And you? You're finished, Jacob revealed as the jealous fraud you are. I stopped there and turned away, choosing not to respond with anger. I was better than that. I would let the law deal with him. The hearing began again. The momentum shifted, but I felt drained, thinking about how far we had come from childish fights to this serious moment. The judge's gavel came down loud and clear, marking the end of the session. Based on the evidence, he announced, his voice calm amid the quiet, custody of Ethan Arnold is now shared by Michael Arnold and Carol Sanders, with Mr. Arnold having full visitation rights starting now. Also, the claims against Mr. Arnold have been dismissed. As for Mr. Jacob Sanders, there is enough reason to send the issues of fraud to the district attorney for further review. Whispers spread through the room, but for me it felt like a wave crashing down. I had won. I could see my son, be a part of his life. Jacob couldn't take that away. Tears filled my eyes, overwhelming and unstoppable as what happened sunk in. Justice. After all the foolishness and betrayals, it felt refreshing and right. Kimberly held my hand from the seats, her eyes bright with shared happiness. Even Carol nodded slightly, a burden lifting from her. Jacob's expression changed completely. The smile was gone, replaced by a look of defeat. Whispers filled the room when officials came to him after the hearing. Unity's board had suspended him while they investigated, and his world was falling apart with the truth now out. Charges of stealing money hung over him, and he might even face jail time. I wiped my eyes, tears falling quietly as years of anger and sadness came rushing out. This was not just about Ethan. It felt like justice was finally being served, like the underdog had won. As the courtroom emptied, Jacob asked to speak privately through his lawyer. It seemed like a last attempt to negotiate. We met in a small conference room, watched by guards, the air thick with unspoken issues. He looked small, his suit wrinkled, eyes shifting like a scared animal. "You think you've beaten me?" he began, desperation in his voice. "This is just for now. I'll appeal and drown you in papers." I stood firm, holding my composure even though I wanted to strike back. "It's over, Jacob. Your tricks and lies have been exposed. Stealing from the company and bullying people to hide it. You're finished, and you're taking Unity down with you." He leaned closer, his mask breaking, words spilling out. "You don't understand, do you? It's always been about you. From elementary school, those stupid freckles, you got everything without effort. Good grades, sports, girls. I had to fight for every bit of it, buy my way in. Beating you was my only goal. Carol, the job, all of this, it was supposed to bring you down." His words hung in the air, an honest reveal of the jealousy that had pushed him to hurt me for so long. From making fun of me to accusing me of things I didn't do, from taking Sandy to flirting with Carol, it all came from that childish envy, which had grown into adult bitterness. I stared at him, beginning to feel some pity. "All of this because you hated being second?" I said, my voice full of scorn. "You're sad, Jacob. A wealthy kid who never matured, ruining others' lives to feel important. Look around, you lost. And those freckles? They're on my son's face now, a sign that some things can't be bought or stolen." He pulled back, hurt more by my words than any physical fight. No actual conflict this time. My words were a final strike, a quiet revenge that showed how far I had come. Later, back at my apartment, the feeling of victory settled within me. Carol called, her tone careful but genuine. "Thank you for standing up," she said. "I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but maybe we can co-parent without the anger, for Ethan." I paused, feeling the old pain but also some healing. "Maybe," I said. "Not complete forgiveness, but a beginning. We both made mistakes, but now my focus is on what really counts." It wasn't easy. Her trust felt broken, and the hurt lingered, but looking ahead, wanting to create a good life for our son, felt like a step toward healing. With Jacob's troubles certain to catch up with him, I was ready to move on, my thoughts drifting to Jacksonville, Kimberly, and the life waiting for us beyond the chaos. Jacob's world was falling apart. The charges against him meant his quick trial was coming, and I returned to Jacksonville in early June 2026 with Kimberly at my side. She decided to make this move permanent, packing up her life in Nashville quickly, her boxes mixing with mine in our new apartment that felt like home. We didn't rush into big plans at first. It was the small things that brought us together: morning runs on the beach, evenings spent cooking, and her laughter filling the quiet places. By midsummer, we officially committed to each other in a small ceremony at a seaside chapel, just us, Elena as a witness, and a few new friends from Sable. "I never thought I would find this," I told her during our vows, my voice filled with feeling. "You brought me back from a dark place and showed me that my past doesn't define me." Living with her changed my daily life. Her strength became my support, and watching her grow from the shy assistant into my equal inspired me every day. At Sable, Elena approached me with a new opportunity that marked a turning point for me. "You've proven you can do much more than your previous role," she said one day over coffee. "With Unity's collapse, clients are looking for help. Let's start a consultancy. Your knowledge of situations like Jacob's? It's invaluable." I hesitated at first, my lingering self-doubt making me feel like just another worker, not a leader. But Kimberly's support reminded me not to let the past hold me back. We started small, focusing on fraud detection, and my journey from a passive programmer to an active partner felt like a quiet victory. It wasn't an instant success, but we were doing well, showing that I could build my future without the shadows of my past. Fatherhood played a big part in this new balance through regular visits to Nashville. Ethan, now thriving after his early struggles, was a curious toddler with freckles like mine. During a visit in late August, as I knelt down in Carol's living room, he walked over with his arms wide open. "Dad," he said clearly, the word a bit awkward but clear. My heart swelled. I lifted him up and tears filled my eyes as memories rushed back the dreams Carol and I once had, now shaped into this new way of co-parenting. We found a rhythm, her change leading to a tentative respect between us, even if full forgiveness still felt far away. Holding him, I thought about my journey. "Hatred didn't break me. It made me stronger," I whispered to myself, feeling the pain of old wounds fade into a thankful determination. One evening at dinner, Kimberly shared a big surprise, her hand resting on her stomach and a shy smile on her face. "I'm going to have a baby," she said, the news washing over us like a gentle wave. It made sense, coming from the closeness we had built, but it still took me by surprise, like going from the family I had lost to a new one forming. Joy filled me, free from the darkness of my past, as we embraced, looking ahead to a bright future full of hope.